Jidaigeki is a Japanese genre of film and television. Roughly, it translates to period drama, and it really refers to stories that take place before the Meiji Restoration of 1868. During the Golden Age, these were broadcast daily, and this was mainly in the 50s and 60s. But unfortunately, nowadays we hardly ever see samurai-era shows on TV. Shogun 2024 was the exception, and hopefully that revives the genre. But it seems like it lost momentum as soon as that show ended. But the term samurai now more often than not usually refers to a video game character or even a soccer team. And really the Edo period itself now is very far away. And people may say that, Jidaigeki and samurai really aren't relevant to today's society. And even so, for some reason, I still wish to preserve this old tradition. And I'm gonna still continue to talk about Jidaigeki because I love it. And I hope to bring up ones that really everyone can still enjoy. There is still some hope for the modern audience. And just ultimately, maybe to keep the spirits of those who lived in that era alive. And if you agree with all that, then, please continue to support my channel. And I thank you to all those who still continue to love this awesome genre. And so that brings us to one of the newest, and I'll say most original, Jidaigeki titles that we've seen in a while. And it's titled A Samurai in Time. And I believe that it's worth your attention, so stick around. So before I get into it, A Samurai in Time was given to me by my good friend Merlin over at SamuraiDVD.com. And SamuraiDVD.com is the best place to buy samurai films. Mostly that's because a lot of them you won't find overseas. They don't exist. And all the films are translated into English, and they're all region free. And actually recently he's been releasing a lot of these films for the first time ever on Blu-ray, which is also the format that I watched A Samurai Time in. And as an added bonus, you could get a discount by using the code BushidoBlues at checkout. So again, after this review, definitely be sure to check out SamuraiDVD.com. So, A Samurai in Time was released in Japan about a year ago, and just now we're getting it across seas. These films always take forever to get. And it was directed by Junichi Yasuda. And this is actually a director who doesn't really have that many films under his belt yet, so hopefully he does more after this. And the film itself takes place towards the end of the Edo period. And it begins with these two samurai about to just duel to the death. So definitely an excellent way to start a film. And they're both members of these two rival clans. And before any of them can land an attack, we see a flash of lightning, and then all of a sudden, one of the samurai named Shinzaemon finds himself in the streets of modern-day Kyoto. And to also add to his confusion, he also happens to be in the middle of a movie set, and of course they're filming a Jidaigeki drama. So not only is Shinzaemon facing the crisis of being, flung completely into this different time period, I believe by 150 years, but also just the tragedy of finding out what's happened to his clan in the past. Still, he does a good job at finding a new job, and this is as working as an extra at a Jidaigeki production. So the film sort of plays with this fun concept of an actual samurai being on the set of samurai films. But I'll say that the message is a lot deeper than that. And it's really a love letter to this movie genre and how it's sort of dying now. And there's even a scene where one of the stuntman instructors just explains how they used to film scenes for about 10 movies a day, but now they're lucky enough to get one a week. And just the job of being a Jidageki stuntman has sort of become a dead-end job at this point. And just as a fan of the genre, when you see scenes like that, it really is emotional. And the film is very reminiscent of other films like Uzumasa Limelight, and even recently Samurai Rhapsody. And I really love whenever I see movies about the actual topic of the genre itself. It really gives you a new perspective the next time you see, two swordsmen fighting to the death on screen. There's a lot more going on than you really realize. Underneath, people are really just working hard to make us feel like we're in this time period. And the amount of work that goes into being a stuntman is just insane. And sadly, we don't often consider it an art form. But it really is an art, even going down to the guy who gets killed during sword fights. He must work really hard to make us believe that he was actually just struck down. And this film is kind of deceiving because if you're just going by the title and even the cover of it, it kind of makes it look like it's going to be this sort of goofy comedy with sci-fi in it. They could even have the tagline, Seven Samurai meets Back to the Future. And there definitely is some comedic moments. But there's really more heartfelt, tender moments than there is comedy. And you may even find yourself tearing up at, the simple things like, say, watching a man from the Bakumatsu era cry while eating cake. And just his realization that something so good can be eaten by everyone and not just the rich. And at its core, the film is just an engaging personal drama about a man whose lifelong principles have come into question. And the actor who plays the character of Shinzaemon, he really manages to just take on this role with a lot of dignity. Really just stressing the moral and emotional conflicts of this main character. And apart from his great skill as just a sword fighter, he really succeeds in telling the story of a man who becomes more and more interested in just keeping a certain period of time alive, while also forgetting to essentially live his life. And, many of us are guilty of that. And really, if any other director tried doing a concept like this, it would just be cheesy. But somehow Junichi Yasuda pulls it off. And you really feel like you're getting something from it. And just some small criticisms I will give to the film is that definitely some aspects of it seem kind of cheap and low budget. Just stuff like the time travel itself. It's kind of just done with a flash of lightning. Nothing too crazy with the effects. But then again, I am kind of thankful that they didn't just go full CGI because that would have been way worse. If you watch my channel, you know that I really can't stand CGI. But also when you watch it, just the way some of the scenes pan out, it seems a little dated. And some scenes too, they didn't really need as much context. They definitely could have edited a few scenes out of this film. It is over 2 hours in length, which is a bit much. But I will give it credit because I did feel like it was paced pretty well. And it definitely did a good job at keeping the concept interesting. It didn't really get old or repetitive, which could have easily have happened. And I like how this is really a drama about a man's struggle to let go of a time he's no longer part of. It has a lot to say about the principles of just the samurai, as well as the reality of filmmaking itself, and how it may serve as a time capsule into another era. So it's definitely a lot deeper than the cheesy sci-fi that could have made it. So even though there's just a few of them produced nowadays, Japanese period dramas, and especially Jidaigeki, still remain one of the most popular genres within the Japanese film industry. And I really do believe that audiences are still longing for seeing just interesting stories that take place during a different time period. You know, just witnessing sword fights and ancient traditions. And it really does seem like the actors and directors also just enjoy presenting their take on the genre. At the same time, it's also proven to be a very just versatile genre, and that's why I love it so much. Films like Uzumasa Limelight, Samurai Rhapsody, or even Samurai Fiction, they're just great indicators of how original these films can be without getting too weird. And while the period of time that Jidaigeki took place in is long gone, their themes, their characters, their overall messages still remain relevant. Whether we're talking about the works of, say, Akira Kurosawa, Kenji Mitsuguchi, Masaki Kobayashi, one of the many aspects of making them engaging is just their ability to tell us something about ourselves, and even just about our time in this world. And really, director Junichi Yasuda showed this by having this protagonist trying to cope with living in another time, essentially hinting at the question of whether the memory of that particular time still lives on, even outside of the Jidaigeki movie set. So again, this really is just a great premise, and it's just one that does a clever job at combining the opportunities presented by the samurai film genre, and also just a story about time travel that doesn't really get too much into it. And also because the film's setting is actually a movie set itself, you know, the main character is actually working as a stuntman in films, it also remains a movie about filmmaking itself. And director Yasuda really remains true to Jidaigeki. You know, just commenting on the concept of a life dedicated to a ruler. Also the code of the samurai. And essentially directing one's life towards the always present reality of death. So A Samurai in Time is just a great blend of Jidaigeki and also a story about time travel. And you know, even though the film does seem kind of cheap in some ways, and it does have a few comedic and weird moments, but ultimately his main success is just turning a time travel movie into something of an engaging personal drama. So I definitely recommend this film. I'll say the person who's going to enjoy it the most is just someone who loves the genre like me. But I could see casual, everyday moviegoers, you know, enjoying this too. So if you're interested in checking this out, it's available on SamuraiDVD.com. And once again, don't forget to use the discount code Bushido Blues at checkout. And like always, thanks for watching.